Welcome to this week's Endurance for Everyone podcast.
The following program is for entertainment purposes only. Though the hosts of this show are certified Ironman coaches, their attempts at long-course triathlons and endurance events should not be taken as an endorsement for you to do something stupid too. You should make your own bad decisions, then podcast about it. Now, let's start the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to 172 of the Endurance for Everyone podcast. I'm John, and I'm here to introduce part 2 of Rob and Karen's epic bike discussion. As you know, last time, if you listened to the last one, it kind of ended abruptly, but you'll notice that this one starts abruptly for the same reason. But they cover a lot of gear stuff tonight, so I think it's really a good show. Starting to get my mojo back, I think. Was lucky enough to get a Snap Kicker Power trainer, smart trainer, and linked it up to ZWIFT. And I can tell you, there's something motivational about doing ZWIFT. If you haven't tried it yet, even if you have a regular trainer, I would highly suggest getting on ZWIFT, creating an account. You can do it for free, I think, for a while, and give it a shot, because once you get into it, there's like a need. I'm sitting here looking at it right now. I got up at 4:30 this morning to ride with Jennifer at 5:15, and I never do that, trust me. But I'm looking at it right now, and I'm thinking maybe I should ride again tonight because it's been raining all day. So I'm not one that's ever liked doing stationary anything, treadmills, trainers, anything. But there's something about watching it on the screen that I really am liking, and I'm liking the challenges. The smart trainer, obviously, it changes tensions on it. So when you're going up and down hills, inclines, things like that, so it gives you a good feel of what it might feel like out on the road. Nothing replaces the actually being out on the road, but this has been really good. And like I said, I was lucky enough to get a hold of one, and I've been really having a good time with it. And swimming now 3 days a week with Tampa Bay Aquatics Master. I have to thank Karen Ness for introducing me to that group. That has been an outstanding experience. I was always kind of leery about master swims groups. I've been invited to others before. Not because, of anything else, but because I know my limitations, and I was always worried that, that I was kind of be left out in the cold, so to speak. But it's been a really good experience there too. And again, I recommend finding a good group. I was talking at work to somebody today about that, and about how her best friends had moved away, and she's like kind of feels lost. And I said, yeah, you need to find your tribe. You need to find people that are interested in what you're doing, and interested in what you do, and can help you along in the process. I've been swimming with the team since probably mid-January, and have knocked 34 seconds off my hundreds, and really not pushing it. I didn't think. I mean, I've been doing the drills. I can't keep up with them, of course, but doing what I can. I noticed last night that, I'm swimming it right at a 2 minute per 100 pace. And when I started there, and it had been since St. Anthony, since I swam last, and was swimming it at 2:38. So I was like, damn, have I really gotten that much better? And it's just a matter of, and we know this about swimming, and when I coach it, I always say it is like swimming is about time in the water and just form, and the more you do it, the better you get at it, and you get better at it despite yourself in a way. I know that sounds funny, but you can't help but get better. The more you do it, you just start getting better and better and better and better. So would highly recommend finding a master's class, especially if you're a triathlete. I have the Infinitus coming up in June and been doing a lot more. I've kind of approached the training a little bit different. I'm going to be talking to Sean and Megan for a show specifically around that. And I've kind of approached the training a little bit different this time, and we'll talk more about it in the show, but just as a little taste of it is the last time I just banged, just ran and kind of ended up hurting myself. So I'm kind of going at this one a little bit more of a cross training thing. I do run, but I'm doing a lot of biking now and I'm doing a lot of swimming. So I'm hoping that not, like we said before, I'm hoping that less is more in this case. And by kind of pulling back on the total runs and kind of doing a couple of really focused workouts around running, that I can get through that race this time and have a lot better outcome than I did last time. So without further ado, there was one other thing I want to talk about, but I think I'll save that. And the discussion with Rob and Karen is about an hour, so I didn't want to do too much of an intro on this one. So like I said, without further ado, let's bring on Rob and Karen.
Ready to start your journey? Whether it's your first workout or you are a seasoned athlete, Endurance for Everyone Coaching wants to work with you. Our coaching team has worked with athletes from beginners to USAT national qualifiers and are comprised of experienced runners, cyclists, and triathletes who have a passion for healthy living and have been where you are. We offer comprehensive coaching programs from weekly support to basic consultation, all designed to help you achieve your goals. If you want to take your performance to the next level, look no further than Endurance for Everyone Coaching. Go to www.teamE4E.com and click on the coaching link, or send an email to teamE4E@enduranceforeveryone.com. And let's get started.
Now, a couple things. I'm going to get into some gear. You've already talked about what you picked up, and I didn't now know. I was going to ask or say what, and this goes into the whole trip planning. What do people want? What can you use? I wrote a line here. I'm just going to read it, and then I'll go back through and say it. Gear hauling, pannier, trailer, drop bag, top tube bag, triangle bag, under the seat bag. Also, you had even mentioned a backpack. You could put a basket on the front if you want. So the route that you jumped on there, and it's the same thing that my friend Brian and I did. It is what is the most common that 99%, I'm going to say, maybe I'm high on that statistic, but you look at somebody who's doing long trips, they're going to use panniers. Majority of the time, it's a back rack. Okay, that goes behind you, and it's going to be a right and a left pannier. Those are the little bags that go on the side. The bag that goes on the top, they call the trunk. Then some of these folks that go out like on, when I say off-roading, and that's not even completely true. Like there's some people that do what are called bike packing. It's like backpacking, but with a bike. Well, if you're taking your mountain bike through a path, you really don't want a lot of gear down low, or because you don't want to make your bike any wider. They usually end up taking, it almost looks like a big fender that goes above the tire. It hangs off your seat post. It's a whole different thing that we're not even going to need to get into here. But if you're looking at anyone who goes cross country or across the Canada or anything like that, it's typically going to be with panniers, the same kind that you have right down low in the back. And if you need more space, some bikes, yours not necessarily, because it has that, I'm going to say articulating, it has the shocks on the front, okay? Mm-hmm. Usually if you have a straight fork, not necessarily Lloyd's, because he's going to have carbon, you're not really necessarily tapping into that. Usually if you had a steel fork, you would also be able to put panniers up on your front. And the whole kind of point behind that is why most people do it with the panniers versus a trailer. I have a trailer, but that being said, is the one I picked up for like $20. I lucked into it and just drove by and somebody was selling it. The retail on these trailers that pull behind your bike. Now, when I say trailer, I'm not talking the little two-wheeled that you put your kid or your dog in. You can do it with those, but you get a lot more resistance. It's a lot harder to pull those. These are usually a single-wheel trailer that, you know, use a different axle attaches to your bike, and they're a little bit lighter. They're heavy made, but they pull lighter than those two-wheel trailers. But they're like $350 to buy them. So they cost 3 times as much as just for the trailer. That doesn't even include a bag that goes in the trailer, like a waterproof bag. Additionally, is it kind of, if you've never ridden, I should say it this way, I used to have a really old 1950s as a vintage tandem. Well, you can ride a 2-person bike with 1 person, but you end up feeling, it literally feels like a train behind you. The thing is so long and you lose flexibility. You know, you're on a bike because you're nimble, but you end up with this really long thing and you can just feel the weight shifting around back there. That's why the panniers, if you look at it, it's where they can mount it safely, but also it keeps that weight kind of almost centered on your wheels. Okay.
So that good. Trailer, like if you compared it to how much you can store in the 2 pinions and the little thing that sits on the top, what did you call that?
Trunk.
A trunk, yeah. So does the trailer hold twice as much, 3 times as much? Like, what is the carrying capacity of that compared to just having the stuff on the back?
So once again, I got mine secondhand, and it actually has a little plastic tub on it. It's maybe, I'm going to say, about the same as my panniers would hold. Okay. And it's almost like a watertight, because it's like a little Rubbermaid. The lid locks down on it, so it is. In that manner, it is great. Now, if you get some of the other ones, the other trailers, like I said, you basically end up putting almost like you would just put your backpack, your hiking backpack, right in it. Okay. It has its own bag, so you can get more capacity. But also think about your hiking backpack or something like that. Instead of a right pannier and left pannier where you're rolling up your clothes to fit into it, if you had one larger duffel bag, you could more easily haul. Let's say if you had a tent with poles of a certain length, you know, there would be an advantage to it, but I wasn't going on a long enough trip for it to play out or to need it in any way, shape, or form, you know. And that's something
like I thought about tent poles because they were the only thing that I thought might not fit well in those pinions, but I was thinking maybe I can just figure out a way of strapping those on the frame of the bike.
There you go.
You know, yeah.
I was gonna say the next thing we'll talk about, and then I want to wrap up the how you haul the gear, and then we'll start talking about some of the gear there. Okay, and that is, one. And you've already got a bike. Lloyd already has his. Anyone else who's out there, if you're going to be going and do this and you have none of the gear, one tip or recommendation would be if you can ride the same, not necessarily the exact same bike as your friend, but if you're both going to be doing a mountain bike or both going to be doing a hybrid, or if you have the same roughly wheel size on it, okay, you could then carry less gear, less tubes, less tire, less duplication. So that's why when I get into the next thing when we talk about gear, you and Lloyd could share, and I'll jump right to it. You only need one bike pump, okay, or
right,
CO2.
It's interesting you say that because Lloyd was kind of excited when they put the new tube on mine. He's like, "Oh, this fits my bike pump now."
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah.
So you're only going to need to carry one bike pump, but you each and you can share one tire patch kit, but you're probably going to want to, each have your own spare tube as well. And you're going to want to know, you can share a bike tire levers. There's certain things you can duplicate and there's certain things you can't. So that's why getting to it, you had said about maybe strapping the tent poles to your bike. That's something that you can definitely do. And I'm just looking at mine right now. 1, 2, 3, there's 4 different places. Actually, that would duplicate 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 different places you can potentially strap it if you're just looking. Top tube, down tube, your chain stay or your rear stay. So
And we've
And
got, I mean, they're really light. We only need like 2 small tent poles for our tent, and they're super light. So it's
yeah.
more just the shape of them.
Hmm.
That's annoying. It's not really so much the weight or anything else about them.
And that's the one thing, and this is um, I recommend a frame pump jumping into some gear here, and that's why I sent you a photo of, and it'll be in the link. I've done the CO2 cartridges. I have them, and that's why I read my bike bag, and that's something that I put on every one of my bikes. That way, when I'm out riding, I always make sure I have it. I have a spare tube that fits that bike. I have a patch kit because you might get one flat and then get another flat. You've already used your spare, right? So the patch kits I get are the pre-glued ones because I don't want to be sitting there scuffing the tire, using the glue. They have these really great pre-glued ones. You just push it, you hold it for a couple seconds, and you're good. Okay? And you'll end up with like 6 patches in there, so you could realistically repair your bike 7 times. And trust me, that'll more than enough get you to the next bike shop that'll be able to take care of it if you're still having a problem. But that's where I say a frame pump, and now I roll with a full-size frame pump. It's basically the top tube is what goes between your seat and your handlebars. Okay, mine tucks right up underneath, and with that is I use these little extra Velcro straps that come with it. I say all that to say the hand pump never runs out of air. It's always going to be there. And most of these new ones, then like there's a little rubber gasket in it. You use it on, like you just said, on one. Lloyd said it now fits my bike pump. Okay, the pump he has. There's 2 different size valves. One's called Presta, one's called Schrader. Presta is the little tiny baby one that like they use on bicycles. Schrader's like what you see on your car, the big fat one. Okay. But most of these pumps, if you unscrew the end of the nozzle, there's a piece of rubber in there. You just flip it around and it has the other one on it. So most of them will do both. You just need to know that you just twist one thing and flip it over. Okay. So also in your bike bag, once again, I'd recommend it, and this is solely just so you can always, once again, fix your bike, something to fix your tires. I would always throw maybe 1 or 2 zip ties and a couple pieces of tape, and that's what happened. Like I said, whenever my friend Brian and I were out, we stopped to look at a bridge. I came back over and realized I had lost a bolt out of my one rack, so it was actually hanging sideways. We threw a couple of zip ties in it quickly. It wasn't going to last days, but I only had to make it 6 miles, and there was a bike shop. They threaded a bolt right back in and got it taken care of. And this is when I say jumping to part of the training, but we're still going to talk a lot about bike and gear here. The earlier and more often you're out and you're riding and you're starting to get familiar with some of these things, the more time you can spend on your bike, the more time you're going to know when something goes wrong. Like instantly, I took 2 pedals on my bike, and you just hear something, and you're like, that doesn't sound right. And that comes from a lot of time on your machine and using it. So I'll let you go guide. What's the next thing? What do you want to jump into, and where are we at?
So just while we're on like taking care of the bike and like what to carry just to maintain it, is there anything else? So other than the tires and like some zip ties in case a screw comes loose, is there like, do you have to carry oil or like anything like a rag in case the chain gets, like, is there anything else weird like that that you would need just to get between bike stores? So
let's talk about the next, I'm going to say 4 months of your life, and then hopefully this makes some sense. I would, and some of the gear, and what I said, like I would recommend getting a bike jersey. I would recommend getting a jacket. I would recommend getting the shorts, things that are going to make your riding more comfortable, and that way you also can, test them. I would recommend you also go out and ride, and even just like you just said, Lloyd commutes. I think it would be cool if I was in your position. Hey, jump on it, and maybe you guys go once a week down into Pittsburgh and have dinner. You know what I mean? You can also, since you have your rack on back, okay, and you have your panniers, take it for a trip to the grocery store. You know what I mean? Like you can start incorporating some of, like, this is the quote training. You're going to get more saddle time, and you're going to be able to ride out. You're going to figure out quickly how to like load it if something happens, or if things can happen, and it'll be a great little on the job training. Now, before every ride, check your tire pressure. Okay, on the side of your tire, it should say Lloyd's road bike is probably going to run somewhere between 100 or between I'm going to say 80 and 100. His cross bike might be just a little less because it's going to be a little softer, and even a little less than that. Like your car tire is like 32 to 44 pounds, PSI, pounds per square inch. So your bike tire is going to be more than that. Maybe it's 50 to 70. You'll see what's appropriate. Now, can you get by pumping it up once a week? Yes, but you're going to be more efficient if you're in the correct range. So it doesn't hurt. It's not hard. Before every ride, check your tire pressure. Now, jumping on the trail, you're not going to have your floor pump that has that little gauge on it, okay? So if you pump it up and you leave day one, you're going to get 2 or 3 days, no problem. So basically, when you hit either, I'm going to say, the halfway point, or when you hit the end point, Ohio POW or Cumberland or DC, I would recommend looking up a bike shop and then just going in and getting your tires pumped up. You know what I mean? Just as a verification. You may need to do that if you're stretching this across a 4 or a 10-day trip. You're going to either want to carry a gauge to check it, or just go to a bike shop, and they like kicking tires and talking bikes. They'll gladly check your tire pressure for you. Okay. Now, at the end of every ride, if you rode your bike in the rain or in, I'm going to say, heavy dirt, you're going to want to wipe it down. When I say wipe it down, get a wet rag and just wipe it off. Wipe down the frame, wipe down the handlebars, and your wheels, just to make sure that everything is clean. Okay. 2 kind of recommendations, and that are your chain, you shouldn't hear it. So if you don't hear it, you're pedaling and it's mostly quiet, like it is right now, because when I say it's brand new, they just took care of it for you. That's how it should sound. But if you're pedaling and you hear that creak, 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 something needs oiled or lubed. Okay. Not getting into complete bike maintenance, there's dry lube, there's wet lube. So depending on what they put on, you either want to do the same or you want to just clean it, which case you can just use like a mild degreaser. You can scrub it. And then, okay. But what you never, and this is the biggest tip I can give you, you don't put WD-40 on your bike. Okay.
Oh, okay.
WD-40, I believe it stands for water displacement. 40 because it was a 40th iteration that actually worked. It makes rusty things move. So if a bolt is stuck, you spray it with WD-40 and then it lets it freeze it, okay? But it dries it back out. The WD-40 is not a lubricant. It is just made to make things move again, okay? So you can they're like $6 or $10 down at the bike store. They'll give you like a little thing of oil, maybe once every 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how much you're riding. You'll put a couple little drops of oil on your chain, and when you oil it, the chain is made up. If you hold your fingers up and you're looking between your fingers, those are the side plates. You don't oil the plates, you oil the knuckles, the joints where they come together. Okay. That's the movable part. You should not, between now and when I say completing this, you should not realistically need to go get anything else done to your bike. You just had it professionally tuned up. They sometimes recommend bring it back a month later, a month after riding it, because sometimes they stretch the cables and they may just like make a few little tweaks for you. You should not absolutely wear anything out between now and when you go to do your trip.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yep. Next.
And so one other just general bike fit question. So obviously getting the seat the right height's easy. It's just got this little clip and you pull it up and down and close the clip. What about the front handlebars? Like, can you just make those higher? Because I couldn't see how to make them any higher than they were sitting on the frame.
So without seeing your bike right now, and I'm actually going to go grab a photo that you had sent me on it, okay? The short answer is going to be no. But anything can be changed and adjusted. So if you're thinking I'm going to go to Lloyd's road bike, then I'm going to talk mountain bike, then I'm going to slightly different as well. This is funny, when I say a cheaper bike, you absolutely can, but some of the more expensive ones, you can't, okay? And so on Lloyd's bike,
it's good to know I'm not just missing something easy then.
No, on Lloyd's bike, my gray bike, my black bike, your fork that holds your front wheel, comes up through. Then they have what they're called spacers or stacks that they ride. They put your, I'm going to call it the neck or the stem. That's the part that goes from it to your handlebars. Okay. Now here's when I say you can't quickly. You, Karen, can't just go turn one bolt and do it. Most likely. Okay. That's why I say a cheap bike you can.
I undid every bolt that was on there, and none of it moved the handlebars up.
some of the bikes. I'm going to say it this way. Some of those less expensive bikes are going to have a bolt that goes through there that you loosen it, and then it's called an adjustable stem. It just rises right up, okay? Most of these better bikes are going to have what's called a fixed stem. That's where the part once again comes off your handlebars, attaches it to your forks. So you turning those bolts, it'll break it loose to where the bars will turn, but the wheel won't. Okay. But what you can do, and when I say they're not that expensive, if it's not comfortable, this is just when I say go to your local bike shop. I do it myself because I know what I like. Okay. You can go to your local bike shop. You can buy different stems. Some of them that are longer, some of them that are shorter. Some of them are flat, like the one on my bike I'm looking at is flat. Some of them will have a 15-degree rise. Some of them will have a 30. Some will have a 45, where they shoot straight up in the air. Okay, that part is only, when I use air quotes there, $15 to $80, depending on what you put on it. Additionally, you can buy an adjustable stem, and then you will have that one bolt for a quick adjust. Okay, so if the fit isn't comfortable, it can be changed. It's just something that you would want to take to your bike shop and have them, and just say, like, tell them what you don't like, and then they can make that change for you.
Okay, because I thought what I would do is, like, obviously I can play around with the seat height. I thought what I'd do is start, once the weather gets a little bit better, start riding it and training on it more. And then once I've spent a few hours on it, I'll have more of an idea of whether it just feels uncomfortable right now because I'm not used to being on a bike for 2 hours, or whether it really is something that, I might need to do something about. So.
Right. You got it. You got to figure out what's uncomfortable with it, and then, like I said, that's where some people would advocate go get a bike fit. Those can cost some money though to do it. But if you know that it's just one little thing, if you know somebody like me and I'm down and around, we could check it out. Or if you once again go to your local bike shop, they'll be able to swap that part out for you if you know what you're looking for on there roughly.
So yeah, other than that, I kind of feel like now I've got everything I need just to be able to just, like you said, just go out and start riding it. That's really what I need to do now. I need to get way more comfortable on a bike, because right now I don't actually feel that safe in traffic even. Like if I try and take one hand off the handlebar, I feel like I'm going to fall off the bike. So I've got to get a whole lot better at that stuff.
And that only comes with riding it. The interesting and what the recommendations I'd make, and this is I'll call it a partial training, but also just in general for anybody thing. And you're right, you need to get comfortable. The good news is, with the exception of the first 2 miles of the gap trail, because it goes from the point and it's supposed to go along the river the whole time, but they haven't completed that part yet. So that does take you partially through downtown. That's where I messed up. If you go back and listen to that, okay? Once you get, and Karen, you'll know this reference point. Once you're past the jail, you're on a closed bike path the entire time. You will not have traffic. You will not have traffic. Okay. So my recommendation to you, Lloyd, and everything I said, try to do a bunch of little rides. Get out, go to the grocery store, go have dinner and such. Maybe on a weekend when it's nicer, just get on the trail and go out a little bit. Maybe at first you go out and head out to Kennywood Park and back. There's also the first portion of that trail is paved. It then does turn to gravel, and I think you guys would just want to experience that a little bit. And it's not that far out, right. Maybe 15 miles. So you could even just ride one portion on a Saturday and then drive your car out and ride the next portion on a Sunday, and or just extend your trip every weekend, go a little farther and just check it out.
Do you remember, Rob, how long it took you to get from the start of the trail to around Kennywood?
I'll say it this way. Off mic, I can figure that out because I can pull up my training. Offhand, I don't know that answer.
Yeah.
Not long. I mean, less than an hour.
Yeah, because we're like right near Kennywood. It would take us like 5 or 10 minutes to get down to Kennywood and then, ride that trail into Point State Park and back. So
yeah. And that's where you're going to do that part. You had said it. You're planning, and then this will be another show here. That'll be the go out and go to Point State Park and back day for one day, and then head out from your house the next.
Right. And I think that what I need to do now is, like you say, I need to just generally get out on it more, but I also need to make myself like stop and start and deliberately, try and look behind me. And I just need to get way safer and just way more confident. With being able to like move around and do stuff, because I'm not exaggerating. That's kind of how bad I am. I put one foot on the pedal. I can't not be sitting on the seat to start moving. So I have to be able to do that too, I think. So I've got a whole lot of confidence stuff to figure out here.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump back into a little bit of gear. Actually, I'll go back to my list. That's kind of actually why I wrote some of it down here. And then if you have more questions, you can fire away. But this is where, on the gear list and on the nice to have, not needed, what do you have, and so forth, you had just said a couple times pedals, and that, and then that made me think. So most bikes, when I say this, if you walk into Walmart and look, it's going to have a flat pedal. Okay, basically you can get on it and you can ride it with your tennis shoes. Okay, yeah. Now Lloyd, if I don't know what he has on his bike, but you have usually you have what's called clipless pedals, which is 100% opposite of what somebody new to cycling, because a clipless pedal is like the ski boot. It is what locks you to the bike. Okay, so these are the two extremes, and I want to talk about it and then what's in the middle there. Okay, so what you might want to look at or invest in over the next few months, or not. It's up to what you want to do. Okay, if you're riding on your flat pedal, you can only pedal when you push down. Okay, you're pushing down. If you pull your foot up, your foot comes off the pedal, right? Now, if you have the ones that you're bolted, you're stuck on the bicycle, you can pedal both when you push down and when you pull your foot back up. Okay, so you can actually pedal, and that's something you want to train to try to do. It's what freaks most people out, though, because when you start slowing up, when you kind of come to a stop sign or a stoplight, you need to stop. You need to turn your foot a little sideways to click your foot out. And that's where a lot of people, if you get going slow and you're not paying attention, you'll fall over because you're locked in and you're not moving fast enough. Now, the reason they call those ones clipless is there's what's in the middle, or what are called toe clips. You can get these little cages, essentially. It's almost, it goes on your pedal, and basically it's where you would use your tennis shoe and you'd use that flat pedal, but then you slide your foot, just your toe in. Okay, and they have ones that are just go over your toes. They have some of them, this is what they used to use back in the day, the 70s and so forth, where it actually has a strap then as well, like a woman's high-heeled shoe that comes around the back of your heel, and that's where those are the, I don't want to say the hardest and most dangerous, because you are literally strapping your feet to the bike. You can't get your feet out of those ones. Okay, so something you could consider getting, Karen, would be the set of toe clips, just a little basket, kind of like the basket that holds your water bottle. It just goes on your pedal. It goes around your foot. Okay,
this is definitely something I need to look at, because I haven't done a lot of outdoor cycling, but I used to instruct spin classes, and I've done a lot of outdoor cycling. Yeah,
so you know exactly what I'm saying there. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and so not being able to like move the pedal when I pull my foot up is definitely, like, it's just inefficient. It doesn't feel like the right to be doing. Having said that, again, it's a confidence thing, because my pedals right now, like when I was just riding it this weekend, it's like they're kind of rough at the top, so when I put my tennis shoe on, I feel like my foot is like nicely anchored on it, and it's easy to put my foot on it and I can easily step off. Yeah. And what Lloyd was suggesting, he's got those cage things that you're talking about. Yep. And he's got it's like a plastic cage, and then it's got a strap just around the toe part. So he was suggesting what I might even want to do is get those and take the strap out, so that at first all I'm doing is just like sliding my foot, into the thing at the front, and I can very easily pull it out sideways or out backwards, or, however I want to do that.
I would
And so I've
recommend
got,
leaving the strap. All that strap is there to do is that plastic is flexible. That strap
oh,
just makes it so you adjust how loose or tight you want it. Once you set it once to where you can get your foot in and out, you'd be fine. But if you take that out, it'll flex more and you're going to lose some of that benefit.
I mean, the thing that's hard for me with them right now is like, when your foot's not in it, it's like it goes upside down, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I've got to figure out how to get on my bike, like hit it enough to turn it up the right way, put my foot in it, and not fall over while I'm doing all of that.
In the links, I'm gonna one thing I put in there. Now this requires buying pedals and shoes, but these are when I say the first set that I bought. When I don't want to say dual sided. If you put in dual sided, usually that just means you can clip in on either side. Okay, but what I want to call them is a dual use pedal. They're flat on one side. On the other side, they have the little clip in thing. They're I believe it's called Shimano SPD, irrelevant, but when you put that in, instead of like if you look at John or me or Jennifer Colchera, our cleat on our shoe is substantial. It's like half the size of a cell phone, okay?
Yeah, that's I mean, mine for my spin bike, that's a decent hunk of stuff under the board shoe. Yeah.
This is just going to be something just bigger than a quarter almost, okay? And they're more used on mountain bikes, and what basically then is you end up with a shoe that you can actually walk in. First off, second is that little piece so you can walk in it, but that's when I say it clips into one side of the pedal, the other side of the pedal is flat. That way you can put your foot on the flat pedal. You can start pedaling. Then all you do is you just lift your foot off the pedal, and as it rotates around, it's naturally going to just turn over, and then you can clip in. And since it's a smaller cleat, it's easier to clip out.
Is it easy to get out of? Because it freaks me out.
Two parts. Yes, it is easy. And second part is most of them are adjustable. So if you don't know what you can take it to the bike shop, they can loosen it to make it where literally you barely do anything and it pops right out. And then you can just keep tightening it, making it harder and harder to get out as you get more comfortable with it.
I'm realizing I need to get braver here and just kind of try, because there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to learn how to do it. It's just I don't know, for some reason it's scary, that whole idea of like falling off a bike. It's like, I don't know.
It is. Yeah. Now, a couple other things I was going to jump into, and I wanted to roll through, and like I said, we were talking some of the gear there. Nice to have. You had asked earlier about what's nice to have, what do you need, what don't you need.
Yeah.
Nice to have, or when I say needed, I'm going to just say needed cycling gear. I have to say helmet. Never ride your bike on a street without a helmet. Now, once you're on that bike trail, I took mine off and it was clipped on my bag. It was behind me, okay? Because that's safety. You're on a bike trail, you're enclosed. You could still fall over, but we weren't that concerned about it. When you're riding,
they don't have rules about that. Like, you don't have to wear a bike helmet.
No, it's a lot of it's you assume your own liability thing, okay? Cycling shorts, like I said, those are the spandex with a little bit extra padding. Those make a world of difference, okay? And they're gender specific, so make sure you get the right ones. Cycling shoes and pedals, I think, are a great investment. I said gloves. Now, 3 different types of gloves. I end up taking 2 different sets on the trip whenever I did it, okay? The first set, the one set I didn't take, the third set's what's called lobster. They're like for riding this time of year when it's cold. They're heavily insulated, windproof. You should not be out at that time of year. I mean, you won't be, I should say. It should not be snow in that cold. The 2 sets of gloves that I had, one are called cycling gloves. Cycling gloves, just generally, they have a little bit of padding in the palm area of your hand. Usually they're fingerless gloves as well, so that way you can get a little bit better, an okay grip, and you have the flexibility. I also personally, and I wear them when I'm riding and when I'm running, they're like a real thin glove, but they have that little mitten layer that kind of comes over, just a wind layer that covers your fingers, and then you can pull that layer back and it tucks in. They're like $10, $15, okay? I love them because I hate personal preference, I can't stand cold hands, okay? Yeah. For me, that's something that's worth getting them. Like I said, I wear them running, I wear them cycling, I wear them all over the place. I wrote jacket, and one thing that you and I had discussed, I sent you a link, and I want to say this. I have a couple of nice running jackets. They don't work for cycling. And when I say it that way is they're cut differently because when you're running, you're in upright posture and you're swinging your arm side to side. When you're on the bike, you're going to be leaning forward, and it's kind of like that, what's the Chris Farley movie, Fat Guy, Little Jacket, If you try to do that in some of your running jackets, you're going to risk splitting them down the back. So, but a lot of these cycling jackets, and that's why I say buy it early and use it often. Some of them, they're convertible to where you can zip the sleeves off to make it a vest. So you basically end up with a jacket and a vest. If it gets hot, you take the sleeves off. When it gets really hot, you take the whole thing off, And if you're going to be doing a lot of riding, early, late, it's just nice to have an inclement weather. It's a great piece of gear, and you're definitely going to want one when you're on the trip.
Are you talking about like a soft shell fabric, like something that's breathable and kind of water resistant? You're not talking about a jacket like a waterproof rain jacket, right?
Not a waterproof rain jacket. No, I did not take one of those. That's a separate piece of gear that if you have it good, and that would be a day or a couple day leading into it decision. But just like when you were hiking or fast packing, you're gonna get wet. If it stops raining, you're either going to it's going to rain all day, in which case you can just say, to heck with it, I'm not riding today, and just hang out, right? You could ride, you're going to get wet, but your clothes will dry out quickly. It's just, some of those times it's just easier, just get wet and be wet. But yes, this is like you're saying, a soft shell, more so wind protection is what I was, that's what is the worst for me. So.
Because the problem with the waterproof stuff too, assuming it's not the middle of winter, you just get hot on the inside, so you get sweaty and just as wet if you just got rain on. So.
Exactly. Some other, I'm going to put it in the air quote, nice to have gear. Power pack. When I say power pack, you can pick them up. That's why I said lipstick charger. It's just a little external battery. Okay. You can pick those up. Now, what my friend Brian had, and I was quite jealous, so I quickly ran out and bought one myself, was a solar one. Since your bike, since your thing, your top of your pack is open the whole time, we just left them clips right on the exterior. They charged themselves, so we didn't have to worry about charging them at night. And also I'd recommend make sure you have, I always like longer phone cords anyways, but that's one thing that Brian did is he had his cell phone on the handlebars. He just ran the cord right up along, from his pack up along the top tube of his bike, and then plugged his phone in, so that way it never went dead. So once again, nice to have, not needed. Nice to have would be a bar mount for your phone. And then so that way it's right there. I said map/books. Those can get heavy. Like you don't need to necessarily pack 15 books, but it's nice. It could be nice, if you're going to be doing this at a more relaxing pace, and if you want to spend a day camping and just laying around reading, you may want to have a book with you. Or a guidebook, but as we started this in the previously and said, you got your phone. You're going to have a world of entertainment right there. Plus, you're going to have Lloyd. And there you go. Lights and fenders. You'll see that on my bike, the gray one, I outfitted it with a set of fenders. They were like $25-$30 or something. They were a generic fit. They didn't look real good in that one photo, but I did trim them later. They fit better. I rode with a set of them. You don't need them. Okay, it's not a necessity to have fenders. It is rock most of the time. So Brian didn't have fenders. All you do is you hear a little bit of a tink, 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 tink as your front wheel kicks up rocks and it hits your frame, and your back wheel is pretty much enclosed by all of your gear anyways. So you don't really, you're not.
Like there just seems to be this little bit of a gap between the seat and the like the pinion and the trunk thing on the top. I was thinking, this sounds really hokey, but I could even just put some duct tape across there, and it would fill in the little bit of a gap between the rack and the seat.
Yeah, you could. If it's on the side, it's really not going to affect you whatsoever. I'm going to say it this way. No matter how clean you try to get, and you went way back and you would ask about cleaning and all that, one of the things I had put, and this goes back to the old joke, not even necessarily a joke, what was the book? The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? A hand towel. Mm-hmm. Always carry a towel with you. I carry a towel. You can wipe a little bit of your sweat off. Your legs are going to get dirty. You're going to be riding on a dirt trail. You're going to, even like if you just I go out for a run on one, I come back, they look clean, but then, you pull your sock down, you can clearly see that line, So, that's something where once we hit the hotels, like I had my once again, my little towel. Once again, I just got it wet, wiped my bike down. It's not going to keep everything no matter how much stuff you add, all you're really doing is adding weight. So
Yeah. And I think, it's a little bit, it's like running on the trails. It's either going to be muddy and you're going to get mud all over you, or it's going to be dusty because it's dry and
Yeah.
you're going to get mud all over you. So, what does it really matter?
So it's, are fenders needed? No. I put them on because that's the bike that I usually would ride to and from work. So if I'm wearing work clothes and I hit a puddle, I just didn't want to get splashed. Were they needed for?
One of the things I was thinking about, Rob, and again, this sounds kind of old school and I haven't really seen them on bikes in ages, but I figure a kickstand could actually be really useful, especially with all that gear on the back.
Yes and no. None of the bikes I saw anybody had them, but you could put one on it. It's extra weight. Most of the time when you stop, you're going to lean your bike. Like I'm looking at mine in my office, it's just leaning up against my wall right now. You're going to have a bike rack, a tree, a park bench. You're going to have something to lean your bike on. All that does is let you lean, air quote, lean your bike in the middle of the street with nothing else around. Especially because the weight distribution, if you have your panniers on the back, that kickstand is usually a real fine little point. It could just sink into the ground and fall over.
Oh, okay. All right. I won't worry about that then.
Yeah. No, good question though. What else you got? What other questions you got?
Well, the other thing that you said that actually is a good idea, and I wouldn't have thought about it, was getting a bell or some way of like making some noise. Because like even when you're running on the trails, it's amazing how close you can get behind people and they don't even know you're there. So when you said that, I'm like, oh, that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, that's one thing you would ask me, and I'll cover 2 or 3 different things. And when I say a lot of this is not applicable, quote, for the trail, but it covered anyways, and that is when you're riding on the road. Okay, when you run against traffic. When you ride with traffic. Okay,
which feels really weird. Like I'm so used to running against it. When I was out riding this weekend, I felt like I wanted to keep looking behind me. I'm like, I can't see the cars.
Yeah. So you'd ask a couple things on cycling etiquette. Essentially, you are like a car. It's funny to say you're a pedestrian, but you're a car. You're supposed to, got to stop at red lights. You gotta, you ride on the road what little portion will be. But when you're on the trail, it's the same as driving a car. You're going to be on the right-hand side, pass on the left, and just a couple pieces of etiquette and that's where I said get the bell. Usually it's you holler out to somebody on your left, or if you have a bell, you ding the bell. And the reason why I say get the bell is you're going to pass a couple of hundred people. You get pretty tired of calling out on your left, and the more you're going to see more people in the Pittsburgh and more people in the DC area than you will in the middle of this trail, but and the bells, they range in price from $8 up to $80 depending on what you want to buy. I have the little $9 ones from the local bike shop on mine. They work just fine.
And so do you see people, do people run and stuff on this trail too, or are you mostly seeing other cyclists and families out just on their bikes?
All the above. Depends on where you're at and the time of day. So Brian and I, when we left Pittsburgh, it was just us heading out because of the time, but we actually saw maybe a half a dozen commuters on bikes coming into work. Okay. Mm-hmm. Later in the day, once we got into some of the state parks, we saw like the mom and the dad with the little kid on the bike, having, just out, we saw people pushing their strollers and so forth. When you get up near Ohio Powell, that was all people that were out recreation, So 50-50 runners, walkers, cyclists, and I wouldn't even say cyclists. There was much less of us at this point who were doing the trail, much more of the recreational person that just came out for the day. No gear and just out there, shorts, t-shirt, etc. When from what I've ridden the other end of the CNO, and it gets much rockier, I should say, down near the end, down at the DC portion of it, and I've ridden from DC to Bethesda and back, and so there's a lot more serious cyclists down there that use that for training. But in that middle part, that Cumberland, right about where we were ending, is where we actually saw people, and this is where I was talking originally about the really loaded. They got the 4 bags on the bike coming the opposite way, and these are people that are going transcontinental. They're going or across the country, and they started in wherever DC, and they're coming up, coming the other way. So it just depends on the time of day and your location. You will pretty much see everyone. There was a portion of the trail where we went for about 3 miles where a deer jumped out in front of us, and it was us and the deer, and it was just running in front of us. It was us and a deer, and it would run about a half a mile and then stop. And then we'd like catch up to it, and it would start running again. It probably wondered why we were chasing it, and all it had to do was stand in the woods, and we would have went right by it. So
That's very cool.
yeah.
All right.
What?
Well, I think I've got everything I need to. What I have to do now is just go out on my bike.
Yeah, that's the one part that I can't help you with. You need to just, like you said, get out and get going with it. Like I said, a lot of this stuff, you don't need all of this stuff to get going day one. But the sooner you get some of the stuff, the better you're going to be at using some of it. And once again, my recommendation would be start. When I say trial running it, maybe take, even just on a shorter trip, take everything you and I just talked about, or the list that I gave you, pack those bags and just go ride 10 miles out and then come 10 miles back, just to see how is the weight distribution, how's it work, what can you shift around, maybe something you can use or something you won't need, and you start paring your gear down from there. So.
Because it's a little bit like, backpacking, except, it would be easy, I think, to take unnecessary stuff because I would feel like I'm not carrying it on my back, but it would accumulate. That weight adds up over hours and hours and hours of doing anything. So
right.
Need to kind of be a little bit thoughtful about that.
Right. Now, I'm going to wrap this last portion in case we don't get into the next into another one by chance. Okay. But what
would be kind of useful is like when John posts this, and he usually like puts something on the Facebook group, right, to let people know that he's posted a new podcast. If people want to hear more, or they want to hear like an update on how training's going, or when I get to actually planning the trip, because we'll definitely talk about it. If people want to hear that, then maybe just drop a comment or something when this show posts after you've listened to it, and let us know, right? Because we can definitely get together again and talk some more about it if people want to hear it.
Oh, most definitely. And that's where the one thing I want to interject, and this will be another 5 minutes maybe here, and it's when you first asked me, and then the whole thought process behind the planning. A couple of these things I said, it depends on how long you're going to be out there. I believe or some of my cyclist friends could do this trail end to end one way in 3 days. That's 3 100-mile days back to back to back, which sounds so tough. Additionally, I've always, and you're going to be able to tell me whether I'm right or wrong, I've always thought the best way to do it was Pittsburgh to DC, because you're going to be going, basically you go up, half the trail, and then you just shoot straight down, and then it's flat. Now, having done that up, and then shoot straight down, that's up to the Continental Divide and then down to Cumberland, I think I'm wrong. I think the better way to do this trail, if you're doing it one way, would be DC to Pittsburgh, not Pittsburgh to DC, because it's relatively flat. DC to Cumberland. Then you have what would be basically a really big steep hill, but basically means you're going to be going uphill for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then you have a 125-mile downhill cruise versus a day and a half of just constantly pedaling uphill. Now, why did I say all that? My friend Brian and I planned when we're going to go, split the trail into two-day sections, 4 days total, based on how fast we're going to ride and what we wanted to do on the trail. Okay, we knew we were going to spend the night, get up in Pittsburgh, ride. We're going to spend the night in Ohio POW. We were then going to end in Cumberland. Now, we should, but looking back on it retrospectively, have gotten up earlier in Pittsburgh, because that would have got us to Ohio POW earlier. And the reason why it would have been nice to be at Ohio POW earlier, one is to not be riding in the heat. And the second part would have been, he would have liked to have seen Falling Water, which is nearby, but we didn't make it there in time. But we didn't plan that out far enough in advance. I say that because your trip, second part is, when we got up, we were up real early. We didn't even try to get up, but we were on the trail pretty much at daylight. Instead of like 7, 8 a.m. like we were on the first day, the second day we were on the trail at like 6. We didn't see another human for like another hour. We were out there. But we were done. We were at Cumberland, and having lunch. To which, once again, if that's something that you and loiter, if you plan it that way, maybe you want to do a spa day, or maybe you want to go check out some of the scenery. And these are things that are going to either make the trip longer. And that's why when you had said to me, hey, I think it's going to take 5 or 6 days, I said, well, Karen, you could easily do this in 4 days. Easily completing it, thinking, once again, I know Karen, the ultra athlete who wants to get it done as fast as possible. It's much different if you're planning this as just a relaxing, if you want to camp or if you're going to want to sightsee and so forth. So, and that's something that good.
Yeah. I think we want to end up somewhere in the middle, honestly. Like, I think that probably our attitudes will be the same as when we've done like multi-day hikes, right? Like, we're never the kind of people who want to get to a campsite and hang out there for like 5 hours before it gets dark. Like, we just get bored. So I think that we'll want to spend most of our time cycling. And like you guys, we'll be up early just because that's what we're like. We're up early. So I think that we will actually cover quite a lot of distance each day just because we'll be on our bikes for a lot of hours.
Yeah.
What I don't want to do, Rob, is feel like we've got to pedal flat out, to get where we're going every day. So I don't want to feel like, oh my God, we've got to cover 100 miles, let's get going. This is going to be a slog. Like, I don't want it to be that.
Yeah.
But my instinct is we probably would get through it really quickly if we don't deliberately plan to have some down days somewhere, like just a whole day where we just decide we're just not cycling today at all. I think we would be better doing that than doing a whole lot of like short days and just ending up everywhere at lunchtime.
Right.
Yeah.
And as a comparison, and we jumped right into it. Brian and I had both jumped. We have biking backgrounds, but we had just came off of marathon training for Pittsburgh Marathon when we did it. Okay. So no cycling in there. The day 1, day 2 might be slightly different. I just look at day 1 here. Our total moving time was 5 hours and 41 minutes, and it was 78 miles. That's the point to Ohio Powell. So you could do the math and figure out, what that averages out to there. But you can see that, once again, I said our moving time, because that picture was taken at 3:29, or so call it 3:30 p.m. We had left the point at 7:45 in the morning. And once again, we stopped once an hour. And that's a tip I'd give, for water, bathroom break, etc. And we stopped for lunch for probably 35, 40 minutes, as well. So, you can see we were on there, 8 to 3:30 is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 4, 7 hours total, 5 of which we were moving, almost 6. Right. So that was an hour of downtime.
I think that's kind of how our days will turn out. I think that the total time from when we actually get on our bike to when we land where we're going to finish will probably end up being around 8, 9 hours, but we'll take breaks in between. And I'm thinking we just won't cover the same distance as you guys. Like, we're not cyclists, so I think
surprised how good and how far you'll go, though.
I want to try and not be the ultra running me. Like, I want to try and be the cruisy me, but that's not who I am. So yeah. there's a good chance we'll be belting out a decent number of miles every day.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right. This has been really helpful for me. I hope it's helpful for people listening to it as well.
Yeah.
Because this is all really good stuff. So thank you.
And if anyone has questions, they reach out to me. And you had said if they want to hear some more about it, drop some notes or comments, message Karen or myself. And we're she'd given you the time frame. This is months away at this point, to where if somebody was interested and wanted to tag along, it's a free country. The trail's open. So
yeah, that's right. And like I say, we won't just like record hours about my great trip to Washington DC unless you guys give some indication that you want to hear more about it, because otherwise, I think we've covered all of the high points that would get anybody else started if they were in the same position as me and you're not really a cyclist right now. So yeah,
you got it. All right, Karen, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Just want to say thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. At least Karen and I, reach out in the group, reach out privately, whatever you want to do. I'll let John put on any of the tags as far as how to reach us and all that stuff. And, have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Endurance for Everyone podcast. If you have comments or questions for the show, send an email to teamE4E at enduranceforeveryone.com. And remember, swim calm, bike strong, and run steady.